time with this, and I think she'll probably tell you in her presentation why this is so near and dear to her heart, so I won't take away her thunder by telling you what she told me. But we're happy to have her with us, and we hope that you do get quite a bit out of this. I know you will, and when we're ready to get around laptops, if you can just share, that would be very helpful. So thank you, Mrs. Krueger, for coming, and welcome to GRCC.
Well, thank you so much.
Come on in.
Come on in. We're not very formal in here, so I believe in running kind of a laid-back sort of thing. Yep. So anyway, like I said, my name is Mary Krueger, and I have been a teacher in the Caledonia schools for 20 years now. I come from a rather unusual background because initially I was going to go into the area of audiology and speech pathology, and discovered when I got through my student teaching at the end of my senior year of college that I was totally bored with teaching children how to make S and R sounds. So I went back to school, and I picked up some training in education of the hearing impaired and spent several years teaching hearing impaired students, and eventually landed as a reading consultant in Caledonia schools. Went from there to first grade, which was quite an experience, 7 or 8 years in first grade, and now I teach third grade. So I'm coming from an elementary education perspective. Now, what I'm going to share with you today, though, you'll see a lot of elementary stuff because that's what I do. However, at the same time, you're going to see some things that can be used at any level, all the way from preschool up through college. It doesn't matter. Once you get on the internet, you've got a tool that really is going to make your lives a lot easier. Now, my understanding is this kind of the beginning of the teacher education?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
We have students who start here at CC and will transfer to 4-year institutions.
Okay,
forever.
okay. So you're really just beginning that journey. What I'm going to lay out a scenario for you. You're a brand new teacher, and you're all excited. You finally landed a job, which in and of itself in this day and age is quite a challenge. So you're feeling very, very fortunate, and you walk into it a week before school starts, and your principal hands you the curriculum. There you go. And he hands you something called a pacing guide for reading, which tells you all of the different standards you're supposed to teach and when you should be teaching them and in what order. And he hands you a pacing guide for math that tells you all the standards you should be teaching and in what order. And he hands you one for writing and stands there and smiles at you. Says, good luck, have a good time. Now there's something that's missing. You walk into your classroom, you look around, and you realize that we have a little problem here. We're a little short on textbooks. And so you take a deep breath and say a little prayer and think, what am I going to do now? That may not sound like a realistic scenario, but it's actually very close to home. With budget cuts, districts are finding every way they can to move away from the traditional kind of teaching that we've had, and they want to do things like cut down on paper, cut down on copying costs. My principal actually told us this in the fall. We've got to cut our copying budget in half so you don't get to copy things as much. So cut down on the papers. We're not going to give you consumable books anymore. So the workbooks have now gone by the wayside. And oh, by the way, because we have now adopted the Michigan Common Core standards, the math program that you have that we spent $250,000 on 7 years ago is now worthless because it's not aligned to the Michigan Common Core standards. By the way, here's your pacing guide. It's not my principal's fault. I'm going to tell you that right now. He just kind of looked at us and said, here you are. You have no book to teach from. That was actually what I ran into this year. It was kind of an interesting thing. We all stood and looked at each other and said, okay, what do we do now? We have no lessons to teach from. We have no book. Well, they left us the book and they said it's a tool. Unfortunately, it's not aligned to anything you're doing. Okay. And by the way, your reading series is no longer aligned to the Michigan Common Core standards either. Okay. And you're going to teach it a whole different way than you've ever taught it before, because we're going to go to something called the Daily 5 and Cafe, which doesn't really line up real well with what you've been doing. Okay. And you have to really lay very heavily on writing, and the Michigan Common Core standards look very different from what you've been teaching in the past, and we don't have a writing program for you. Okay. Enter technology. After we all got through panicking, we decided that we were just going to do it, and it actually has turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because we've discovered that we don't really want those textbooks. Those textbooks are very limiting. Today I'm going to take you on a bit of a safari, and we're going to take a trip through a lot of different websites in the internet. Some of my favorites. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, this is only the tip of the iceberg. I sat down and I kind of thought about, what are the places that I go to a lot? What are those places that make my life a whole lot easier and keep my little third graders engaged so that I can work with children individually, and I know that they're learning something and they're practicing the skills. And by the way, I need to find something that's aligned to the Michigan Common Core standards, which everybody in the state of Michigan and across the country, they're going to this, and it looks very different from what we've been doing before. So I've got to completely rethink what I've been doing. I've pretty much thrown out a lot of my lessons, and I've had to start all over again. So let's take a little bit of a look and see where we're going with this. Now, the thing that we need to understand, first of all, is Caledonia is very blessed, Caledonia schools, because we have, from third grade on up, one computer for every student. So we're very, very lucky. Not all districts have that. However, I think you're going to find in the next 5 years that that's pretty much the direction we're going, because like I said before, the districts are getting away from buying textbooks. Everything's going on to an e-reader. You're going to see a lot more of the iPads and things like this, the iPads and the e-readers, and we're going to have textbooks on that. They're not going to spend the money on those things that we put in kids' desks. Consumables are gone. It's just not happening. Districts can't afford to pay for it, and they can't afford the copy costs of constantly having paper trails all over the place. So all of those things are going. We have to find a faster, easier, cheaper way to do it. And this is where we're going to be going. Not to mention the fact that Michigan Common Core Standards has a pretty heavy-duty technology component to it. Kids are expected to produce digital projects, digital performance. So we need to have them on these computers all the time. Let's take a look at it. This, I thought, was a really interesting statement that I ran across. Half of all public schools in the U.S. are providing handheld devices to all of us. And like I said, Caledonia, from third grade on up, it is one computer per child. At the kindergarten, first and second grade, it is one for every 2 children. In fact, our kindergartners right now are piloting working with iPads, and the teachers refuse to give them up now. But this is where we're going. So by time you have teaching jobs, this is what your experience is going to look like. And if you don't believe me, well, this is not very far from the truth. I have kids that have taught me an awful lot about technology. So what do? Well, let's take a look at some places that are going to be very helpful to you. So let's begin our safari. And of course, language arts literacy is our biggest issue. 90% of what you do is somehow literacy related. And this is where you're going to put the vast majority of your energy. One of the places that you may really, really, really want to get to know well if you're dealing with young children, or actually kids in anywhere from about 6th grade on down, is Storyline Online. If you have a computer, feel free to get on there and take a look at that and come with me. If people want to kind of jump in there, make a friend, find somebody with a laptop and kind of buddy up with them a little bit, feel free to do that. What I want to do is show you a little bit of what Storyline Online is able to do. This is a website that's actually run by the Screen Actors Foundation, the Screen Actors Guild Foundation. And all of these, they have all of these wonderful pieces of literature that are read by actors and actresses. Along with that, we have all kinds of activities that you can use as follow-up activities. Once again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Somebody else has already done all the work for you. All you have to do is know where to find it. So let's take a look at that one real quick here. We'll take a little journey in there. And later on, we can go back and explore these a little bit more. Oh, come on, please load up. Okay. What we've got here, what was the one I chose last night to do? We've got a whole bunch of wonderful stories here. Let me see if I can bring this on down a little bit. All right. My favorite was one that was actually written by Melissa Gilbert. You've got an awful lot of different ones there, and some of these are stories that you'll recognize. These are stories that are found in just about every classroom out there. These are the ones that you want to use as anchor texts when you're trying to teach some kind of comprehension activity. These are great pieces of literature to use when you're teaching writing style. This year, in fact, we've spent a great deal of time talking about Patricia Polacco, who is one of my favorite authors. And the nice thing is, kids can get on here with a set of headphones, and you can send them right to Storyline Online, and they can actually listen to the story. Just give you a little bit of, this one's written by Melissa Gilbert. We'll give it a best quality. And the nice thing is, the story comes up. You don't have to go looking for the book. The book is already there. Kids can listen to them as you're working with other kids. Can't seem to get any volume. We don't have audio. Well, that's not good. But anyway, but you got Melissa Gilbert. Have we got it? There we go.
To read. So it is going to be my pleasure.
I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I want you to have an opportunity to see how nice of a setup they've got for this. And kids can go back and listen to this as many times as they want, and I actually use this to teach writing skills and look at author's craft.
Now, my babushka, my grandmother, knew lots of things. She knew just how to tell a good story. She knew how to make ordinary things magical, and she knew how to make the best.
So you've got all the artwork in there. It's a great place for kids to go. I don't know how many times I've used that kind of thing to give the kids an opportunity to listen to the story, and then I can go back and talk about the author's craft and actually pull out the book and use it. The funny thing is that these same kids would not pick up the book and read it. They'd be okay with me reading it, but if you put it on a computer and say, I want you to go in there and I want you to listen to that story, they think they've died and gone to heaven. So, you know, it's something about putting it on a computer. They just think that's wonderful. The nice thing now, too, is that you have related activities that go with this. So if you're looking for something that you want the kids to do after they've listened to the story, we have all kinds of lists, and you can tell them, I want you to choose one of those 3 things to do. And if you don't like those, well, we'll go on down and you can go a little bit farther and find all sorts of different things. And these are wonderful reading response activities. So when kids have listened to a story, you can go through, find an activity that fits with whatever it is, the concept that you might be teaching, and somebody's already come up with the questions for you, giving you the activity. We've got more activities. So in case you don't like those, there's some others, and there are a lot of times that you can go back and respond, maybe compare and contrast with another book written by the same author. It gives these kids a wonderful opportunity to go in and read these things independently, and it saves you an awful lot of time. The nice thing is you also have an activity guide, so they're nice to the teachers and they give them everything they need. So Storyline Online has become one of our little gems. Let's take a look at another one here. Fun Brain. This one is fabulous for math, it's fabulous for reading, it's fabulous for writing. This is one that the kids ask to go to again and again and again. And I swear most of it's because of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, because that's their favorite thing to read. When you go to Fun Brain, and like I said, later on we'll take you back and give you an opportunity to play with some of these things. You have a math arcade, you've got reading, you've got just some fun stuff to do. They will highlight different books. And so the kids have a chance to kind of preview it and read an excerpt from it beforehand. But they have this wonderful thing down here where you can actually read some of these books online, which, like I said, because of Diary of a Wimpy Kid, my kids will go to this every chance they get. But the other thing that they absolutely love are the Mad Libs. And they'll give you a story, and then you have to fill in different parts of speech in order to complete it. And then you come up with these wonderful stories. And the thing I like about it is it helps my children review parts of speech, which to a third grader is not a whole lot of fun until they get to something like this and they can create their own goofy stories. And they absolutely love it. So they go in and they choose different parts of speech, and then you know, they're going to put a story together using all of these different ones. And they'll go through and ask them to do all different kinds of things like this. And we'll give it a number just real quickly. A monkey. We'll go through the monkey. And let's be sad today. So it's just a great way for kids to, did I get it? So it's all video game types too, so that's half the fun of it. And we've already been rough, so let's be angry. Doesn't take very long. But again, it's a wonderful way for them to practice their reading skills. They think they're just having a good time. We know that they're doing a whole lot more than that. And all of these are on the handout so that you can go back and play with these whenever you want. And now you've created this wonderful creation that the kids can take home. They can print it out, they can take home and read it, and they think it's absolutely hilarious. And you can do these same stories again and again and again. There is nothing more motivating than that. When we want to get kids to read, we've got to find some different ways to do it, and especially our lower readers. We really need to find fun and engaging ways to do that, and what a wonderful way to do it. And the nice thing about something like this is then we can go through and we can start talking about the choices they did and the what-if game, where we can sit down with the reader and we can say, well, what if we had changed that to something else? How would that change the rest of the story? This allows kids to think on a much deeper level, and we can really begin to work on the comprehension end of that. So it's another way to keep them engaged without the teachers having to do a tremendous amount of planning and digging up materials. Your time is very limited. The faster you can do these things, the better off you are. This is one for smaller children. If you're dealing with the kindergarten, first, and second grade kids, this is a wonderful site. pbskids.org. Read between the lines. When I taught first grade, I don't think there was a day that went by that I didn't use this. This is a wonderful site for differentiating. You've got kids at the first grade level that are reading chapter books, the beginning chapter books. You've got other kids that can only maybe read 1 or 2 words. You need to be able to meet the needs of all those kids. So a site like this is a wonderful help. You've got games and all sorts of video clips and whatnot that you can go in and take a look at. The story end of it in particular, whoops, what happened there? I don't know if it's going to, oh, okay. Let's take it over here. PBS Kids. Again, highly engaging.
Games.
Stories. Video clips.
Lions to go. Parents and teachers.
A lot of these sites do also have the parent component, and they have activities that parents can work with the kids on at home. That's a very helpful piece, and so I look for a lot of those kinds of things too. Again,
Stories.
and you can hop in here and take a look at some of the different stories. Let's see what's coming up.
Animals.
Oh, let's see what we got here. So this is particularly great for young children, because when you're looking at a particular phonic element or you're looking for particular sight words, we'll go and we'll find the story that we think works best for that child. They can do this at home, they can do this at school, they can read them again and again and again because it's highly interactive, and they have games that actually go along with the stories and are dealing with that particular concept. You've got half your work done for you. All you have to do is be able to know where to go to find them. It will read them for the kids. It's actually one of the more helpful sites that we use with young children. This is one for grades 4 through 6, the older kids. My kids, my third graders actually love this one too. And it's a lot of reinforcement of the language arts skills that we teach the kids, spelling, parts of speech, all of this kind of stuff. The stuff that otherwise would be extremely dry. And like I said, we used to have consumables that the workbooks that we were able to use for these types of things. Those are all gone. I don't have spelling books anymore. I don't have grammar books anymore. I need to find some way to allow kids to practice this stuff without having to spend a lot of hours making up my own. And that's where, when I'm working with my reading groups, I can give these kids options like this and say, you know what? When you finish this assignment, why don't you go to Tune University and let's work on, and we can hop in there and take a look. Let's just look real quickly. The kids love this particular one because, let's get up here to it first. We'll hyperlink in there. They think this is just way too much fun. Uh-oh. What do we got? Blocked. All right, we won't be doing that. Guess we won't go there. Let's try something else on there. Let's see if parts of speech will come up. Nope. Well, when you get home sometime, visit it and take a look at some of the games. For some reason, it came up last night, but apparently in our network here, it's going to be blocked from us. What you have are a lot of video game type things. They're like arcade games, and they actually have to go through and shoot things down, explode things. And, you know, for a fourth grader, exploding things is about as much fun as you can have. So that's one you may want to take a look at if you're working with older elementary kids. Read, Write, Think. This is one that I particularly like for developing organization in their thinking, to build up concepts, to work on their writing. This is a great place for graphic organizers. One of the things that we spend an awful lot of time doing is helping children to arrange their thinking visually. And so we do like to use graphic organizers, but again, you're constantly copying things off. This is a place where kids can actually go and do this on their own without us having to give one more piece of paper that we have to correct, or one more piece of paper that we have to go through. Now, some of these, the one thing I do want to warn you, some of these programs are free, but there are other programs where you may have limited access free, and then for a price, they'll give you the complete access to everything. We use as much as we can that's free. I do have some sites, some of my favorites, that I actually pay for every year. The districts don't have enough money to do that. My advice to you is start now, putting a few dollars away here and there, give up that latte once a week or whatever, and put that money away in a fund, because you're probably going to want to be able to pay for the subscriptions to some sites, some of the favorite places you are. And you know, they might only be $30, $40 a year, but $30, $40 a year adds up if you've got 5 or 6 different sites. So I tell my student teachers the same thing. I said, you know what, when you graduate, your parents want to send you on a trip, tell them, forget that, just put the money in an account, because I'm going to need it to pay for a lot of the teacher things that districts just plain don't have the money to pay for, but that are going to make your life easier and are going to really be enriching for the kids. So it's really an investment you want to be thinking about. And if you start now with just a few dollars here and there, it's probably not a bad idea to do that. I can spend over $1,000 in a year on things like this. So it does become a little bit expensive, but when you find the sites that you really like, you want to get in there. This one, again, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. People have come up with lesson plans, so you don't have to be constantly thinking of these things. If you know where to go and you know where to look, somebody else has probably already written a lesson plan that you can take and you can personalize it and shift it around to meet the needs of your kids. It's a whole lot less work. I can spend 15 minutes perfecting it and customizing it to my needs, but somebody else has done most of the work for me rather than spending several hours on that. The student interactives on Read, Write, Think are definitely worth looking at. They're an opportunity to organize their thinking. The inquiry and analysis, in fact, is one that my kids have been working on a little bit. And when we do research, it's difficult to get kids to understand what kind of information they need. In fact, we're working on that kind of thing today. And this is one that they're actually going to be doing down the road. You're going to type in your title. Let's see, today we were doing muskrats, teaching them how to do a search. And so we want to get into, let's look at animal facts. Okay, now we're going to actually create a graphic organizer. We'll just type that in real quick. And so we've entered the animal's name. This one is so nice because it actually leads you. It leads the kids to what it is we need to find out. And once we have done that, then when the kids get to that question, I can look at them now and say, okay, when you are doing your research, I want you to focus only on that piece of information. What I have found, even at the 3rd grade level, kids don't understand that when they're doing research, what they're doing is finding the answer to a question. And so I say, well, we're going to do some research on muskrats. They find, they type in, Google in muskrats, and then they find mountains of information, and they have no idea what to do with it. So they have to make the connection that research is looking for the answers to a question. If you can give them something like this, that you could spend hours putting together, but again, somebody's already done it for you, so why should you? They've already said, we want to know what the animal looks like. Now my children can go over, they can do the research, they can come back in here and they can type in the information that they found. So this little guy, well, he didn't do a lot of research, so we'll put him in as brown and furry. And he decided he was fat. So he's put that in. Return. Now they're going to find another question. So they need an answer to this. How does the animal move? What sound does it make? I'm going to send my children back. I'm going to teach them how to put in a search term that's probably going to get them that information. We're going to stand back and probably read that information together, and we're going to learn how to summarize the information in our own words in 1 or 2 bullet points, which we can then put in our little box together, and we once again will have made the connection that what we want to know, we formulate questions, now we're going to go research that. So we're doing step by step by step for children to build those research skills. Then, what does the animal eat? And then when we get all done, we can print that out. The kids now have a graphic organizer, and we can teach them how to take that information now and actually put it into a paragraph form. So I haven't had to do any prep. I have had to do absolutely nothing. My kids have their acers in front of them. They do all of that. It's right there. We hit print. They've got this wonderful little graphic organizer, which we can then sit down and learn how to write a paragraph with that. So again, there's very little work that the teacher has to do. Oh, that's only one. The other one, the other thing, like I said, is you have lesson plans. You want to teach kids about fairy tales, how to write a fairy tale, you'll go in here and you're probably going to see that. Now in this particular one, we're looking at animals at kindergarten in grades 1 and 2, but they're going to have other grades in here. We get up to a little higher level here. Grades 4 through 5, lesson plan. This is an entire unit, multiple perspectives, building critical thinking skills. That's the kind of thing that could take you hours on end to do. They're going to actually provide the organizer for you. They're going to tell you exactly which charts to go to. It's already been done for you. All you have to do is really take that information and run with it. So your lives are just much less complicated. That's a wonderful resource also for parents for after-school activities. You'll have parents that want to know, what can I do to help my child develop these skills at home? Send them to a place like readwritethink.org. They've got all kinds of things that they can do. Again, you're not having to gather all that information for them. You can send them to a site, and it helps a lot. Shepherd Games. So Shepherd Software happens to make wonderful software for learning. This is one that's got a multitude of great things that you can do. And the nice thing is that it's a great way to, it's got some tutorials in it, but it's also a great way to review or reinforce skills that you've taught. Forget the worksheets. Send them over here. You want to talk about verbs, we'll send them to Verbs in Space. And the kids can have a grand old time reviewing what a verb is, reviewing how to play, and of course now they're going to go in here and they're going to find the verb. And my screen is a little off here, but they have all kinds of fun with it. And they so thoroughly enjoy beating things up. And it's amazing how much that reinforces what you've taught when you can go in and do something like that. So there are all kinds. Shepherd Software has got all kinds of games at all different levels that kids can have a good time with. This is the replacement for my spelling book. My spelling program is all on here, and I'm going to show you what we did with Caledonia Schools. Our third grade team, district-wide, decided that we didn't want to work too hard at this anymore, so we went ahead and went to Spelling City. We agreed we didn't need a spelling book. Why spend all those thousands of dollars on something like that? So what we did, if it comes up, it's coming. Bear with me. Okay. This is a combination free and premium site. You can do this one for free. You really have everything that you really need for free. However, if you want to spend a few dollars on it, there's all sorts of extra stuff. And the great thing about it, kids can study their spelling words, they can do activities, they can do games, they can do vocabulary activities, and they can take spelling tests online, and it corrects it for you and loads it into your grade book. So and it's all differentiated. Just case in point, let me log in here just a second and I'll show you what we did with this. This is the type of thing that you really want to get with your teachers eventually and do something like this. Up here we have all of our spelling lists in here, and each of these different things, if any of you are skiers, you'll know about green circles, blue squares, black diamonds, and double black diamonds. We start out very easy and work our way up. So our spelling lists have been differentiated so that whatever level the kids are at, they can get their own list, and they're tied into our reading series. And we'll have an entire list of spelling words already there. They can print that off. They can do a test. They can do have them teach it. They can do flashcards, and they can do wonderful spelling games. And if they get bored with one, well, there's plenty of them to choose from, many of which you can actually print out if you want to to send them home for homework. I send my kids to Spelling City from home if they have internet access. This is up on my website, and the kids go into it and they practice it, and the parents have told me a lot of times they can't drag their kids away from it because there's such a wide variety of things. We've got writing, we've got vocabulary, we can get into just about any kind of game you want. You don't have to do spelling homework anymore. You don't have to create homework. It's already been done for you. The activities are there, you don't have to think about it, and you don't have papers to correct. Very engaging. I use that for vocabulary for my reading also. In fact, my kids were doing sentences with it this week. And in a little while, I'll show you how I go use another site called Edmodo and put all of this together in there so that all of my assignments are right there and kids can access everything online. They can do it at school or they can do it at home. This one, Domo, Go Animate, it's kind of a new one that I've run across. It's a fun way for kids to tell a story, a fun way for kids to demonstrate their learning. It's also a fun way to teach kids about conversation in storytelling. The one thing I will caution you about on this one is that it is a public site, and it means you've got everybody under the sun animating, not all of which is appropriate for children. So you have to kind of go in and really take a look at what's on there and set up some very strict requirements in terms of what children can do on it. But it is a wonderful way to get kids writing and get kids demonstrating their learning in a more unusual way. This is a great one. Everybody should have this in teaching. Everybody should have this on their bookmarks. Games, games, and more games. And I'm not kidding. Want games? Want things to do to reinforce learning? There they are. You keep this one on, you put that on your website, kids can go to that. My kids will use this during our indoor recess time. I tell them they can go to any site that is on my teacher website because it's already been previewed. If it's not on my teacher website, they better not be there, they'll lose their computers. However, you've got a lot of great stuff in here and a lot of great learning activities that you can get into. And it's all in one place. So it's one that you may want to, when you have a boring Friday night and you got nothing else to do, get on there and play with some of this stuff, see what's out there. It's a great little thing to have in your arsenal. This is another one that my kids use on a daily basis. We have our time during our daily 5 time when kids are working independently, and I'm conferring with kids or working with small groups in our language arts, and I can tell the kids, you need to be working with words, and they'll go to working with words and take their pick. There's enough there so that there's so many different activities. There are times when I will go through and I'll say, you need to go to this particular game. Other times I just give them that 10 or 15 minutes to choose what floats their boat and say, go ahead and try some of these different things. And the sheer volume of it is the nice thing about it. Somebody has actually taken the time to go through all these games and find all the best reinforcement things out there. Keeps them motivated. They absolutely love it. Well, that's just a teeny tiny bit of what's out there in language arts, but it's enough to keep your kids very, very happy and very busy. And when you're putting together a lesson plan and you're looking for some way that you can reinforce, these are wonderful places to go. The math end of it, remember I said I don't have a math program. We've had to pretty much rewrite the book. In fact, I made a comment to our curriculum director the other day that I thought it probably wasn't the most effective way to do it, to write the book and teach it at the same time. But we found a lot of great places to go. And once you've taught the concept, you need ways for kids to practice, and it doesn't have to be paper and pencil. I very, very seldom now take papers home, because most of what I need to do, I can do online, and I can be walking the room. I'm roaming the room the whole time, and I can see which kids are getting it, which kids are not. And on a lot of these places, I can keep a record of their progress that I can share with parents. Cool Math for Kids has a little of everything. Whoops, where'd I go? Are we not going to do that one? There we go. In case you wanted to know what you needed to teach, it's all there. It gives you short tutorials, it explains different things, but then it also gives them practice in all those different things. It's a great place for kids to be able to go back and revisit a skill that maybe you've taught that particular day and you want to reinforce. They can go in there and spend some time working on that. You've got practice, you've got lessons, you've got games, you name it, you've got it. So it's a nice way. Right now we're working on fractions. I can send my kids into fractions. And it's kind of a fun way to do it. Kids really enjoy seeing somebody other than their teacher. The nice thing is, if they're not sure about something, there are lessons. So we're looking at mixed numbers. Kids have a hard time with a lot of that. And I like the fact that they give it to you in a very, with a lot of color. I have kids that really, really need something like this. And they can go back and sit down with their parents at home. They can actually go back and review what it is that we've talked about. Then we go down. Well, okay, come on, be nice to me. And they're going to give you some practice problems. Whoops, if it'll cooperate with me. And now we're into mixed numbers. So it gives you a little bit of a tutorial, but then we're going to go back and we're going to actually practice some of these things. So it's just another avenue that I can say to the kids, you know what, if you're not too clear on this, if you're still feeling really uncomfortable with it, why don't you go to Cool Math for Kids, and I want you to go to this spot, and let's take a look at it together. Or sit down with Mom and Dad, and let's look at it, and let's practice it a little bit. They don't give me a hard time on that at all. We've got, again, let's see what they have for the parents. And parents have all sorts of interesting information. Parents love it when you give them a resource like that in your newsletter. Every newsletter that goes home, which, by the way, I never send newsletters home on paper anymore. They're on my website or they're emailed, but I give them a link. I always give parents a link to something that's going to be helpful to them because they need that information. We do not have a lot of time to be sitting there and writing out things for them. We can give them a link and say, you know what, why don't you go there and take a look at that? They love it. Parents absolutely crave finding those resources, but they don't have the time to go looking either. So if we can just, in our newsletter, put one little hyperlink and say, you know what, check this out. This is what you're going to find there. They are so thankful. And you know what, they're on board with you, and they're more likely to sit down with their kids and do some of these things when we give it to them and give them the little tips. So it's a great communication tool for them. This is by far my right-hand man when it comes to teaching math. And the nice thing about IXL, it is a paid site. We did beg and plead our principal to pay for it for school-wide and said, you know what, we can't live without it. However, you can actually do the practice in any of the skills. You can do 20 problems a day for free. So even if it's something that your building is not paying for, you can still use it. And in fact, up until this year, we were using it. I teach summer school, and I would use this for my kids in summer school, and what I would do is get a 30-day free trial. You know what? Worked out fine because my summer school ran 30 days. So I got full use of IXL for 30 days, and then they'd say, well, you're done with that. So eventually we did jump up and down until my principal finally said, yeah, I think we better pay for it. this one is particularly wonderful because they've already set it up so that it is aligned to the Michigan Common Core state standards, which you're going to hear that term from now until to the point where you're going to hear it in your sleep. That's the curriculum that the state of Michigan is now adopting. That's what you will be teaching. And so we want to find those places where they're actually already set up and geared for us. I'm going to log into this real quick because I want you to see what you can do with this. The thing I like about this, well, first of all, you go to the state standards. I want to know what to teach. I'm teaching this, remember I said I had my pacing guide, and it says, this week we're going to be teaching 30A1, whatever 30A1 was, I don't remember. Okay, interpreting the product of a whole number, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, fine, how do I teach that? Well, what I do is once I've taught it, I can go in here and the kids can practice it. And they have already looked at the types of questions that are going to be asked on the new, well, it's not going to be the MEEP test anymore. It's going to be called the Smarter Balance, the new testing that's coming out in a couple of years. And they've already looked at the kinds of questions they're going to be asking on there, and they have designed their practice with those same kinds of questions. What we have discovered is that you know, these standards can be interpreted a lot of different ways. And the way the state of Michigan is interpreting them is a lot deeper knowledge. And when we're teaching things like multiplication, we need to be teaching at a much deeper level than we have been. IXL has already gone in and looked at those types of questions and said, these are the kinds of questions you're going to see. So they've designed their practice to look like the kinds of things that our kids are going to see on those tests. So when the Smarter Balance test comes out, it's not going to be quite as scary to them. You're going to go to something here and see it tells you, oh, here are the 2 different places that you can go to practice it, and I don't know what, there it goes, and it shows you kind of what it's going to look like. The kids go through and they just continue problem after problem after problem. They earn points for it. They get medals. They can go in and they get prizes. They love it. They'll stay on that stuff for hours if you let them. I use this a lot with my parents because I can put in whatever standard it is I'm teaching, I can then email a parent and say, you know what? Johnny's having a real hard time with this one. I'd like you to go out to IXL, and I'd like you to go to 3rd grade, E.1. And would you have Johnny just practice that for the next couple of days? And the parents can go in and they can sit down and do that. It's so nice because little Johnny's getting all this practice. I haven't had to send a worksheet home or anything else. All I had to do is email the parent and say, hey, would you go to E1? Because once again, this is on my teacher website. The kids know how to get there. They go home and they practice. In fact, when they get close to getting a certain number of prizes, they're begging me, can we please practice this at home? I said, yeah, never going to say no to that. So they're going through and they can come up and actually put in these, and they get feedback if they get a wrong answer. Let's say this one, let's see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to do this one just to see what happens when it comes up wrong, okay? So it gives you that, but not only does it give you the correct answer, it gives you an explanation. And I have taught my kids that when you get a wrong answer, you must go to the explanation. They're going to tell you where your misunderstanding is. And that has made a huge difference in what my children are understanding. It also tells us kind of what it is, the kinds of questions. I will sometimes do this as a whole group. And we'll go through them together, and the kids will respond as a group to it, and we'll go through them. They love it. It keeps them very, very engaged. The other nice thing about this is you get these wonderful reports. I can check the status of any of my kids, exactly what they're doing. I can look at their usage by child, by the number of problems they've done, what skills they've practiced. It'll give me a complete overview of information like that as a whole class, as well as, see, you can see exactly how much they've been practicing which one. The performance, the one that I like the best though here is the trouble spots. I can look at my class overall for trouble spots. I can look for students. I can look for underperforming students. I can go through there on a weekly basis, look at what my kids should have been doing, click on it, and go through and find the kids that are on a particular skill. They're having a hard time. I haven't had to dig through tests or anything. Within 5 minutes, I know exactly which kids I need to pull to work on that particular skill. So I don't have to do any work. And the kids are constantly, and then you can make, print these up and send them home to the parents so the parents get instant feedback on what's going on. And they're going to tell you exactly what kind of problem it was. What were they doing? What was the skill that we're looking at? So that's a huge time saver, and with as much as you have to do, you need all the help you can get with time savers. So IXL is one that, when you get to a teacher interview and they ask you, do you have any questions, the first thing you ought to do is ask them about 2 different sites. Do you have IXL? And the second one that we'll talk about in a few minutes is Discovery Learning. Do you have a membership to Discovery Learning? If you've got those 2, you're in good shape. AAA Math, another one that's got a lot of real good reinforcement, practice. It's a wonderful place to just send the kids for a little bit more. Keep it on your website, let the kids visit it once in a while. Illuminations. This one I particularly like for activities and lessons. You can put in the standard and you can come up with lessons and you can come up with activities. You don't have a book, you don't have a teacher's manual, and you're thinking, boy, how am I going to go ahead and teach that one? How am I going to address it differently? You can go to a place like this and they're going to give you the resources so that you can get ideas on how to go about coming up with a different kind of lesson. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time going through some of these. Math Magician, if you're dealing with facts, this is a great place to be. This one and another one that I don't have in here, but it's extramath.org. My kids do it 10 minutes every day. It's strictly drill, but it's developing fluency in facts. And third grade, my kids came in the door, they still weren't even fluent in addition. So they're up through multiplication now. But it's another one that sends you reports on every kid because you can see exactly how they're doing. They go on there 10 minutes a day, warm up first thing in the morning, they get on IXL, they do it, and they're developing their fluency, no problem. This is one I said, people who are going to be teaching at the upper grades. I've used this a few times. These are actual lessons. It's like on a smart board. And this guy actually teaches the math lesson, and you can sit back and he uses it's almost like the neon chalkboard on an iPad. And it's all color-coded, and it's a screenshot. You go in and you put in any lesson, and it could be anything from preschool to algebra to trigonometry to what have you, to calculus, and put that up, and he actually teaches the lesson for you. Sometimes a little variety in the kids is great. We did this with fractions, understanding the numerator and denominator, and it was just one more avenue I was able to do. I went in, I found where they were talking about numerators and denominators, and just put the lesson up. And for some kids, it was just that different person and that little bit of different approach to it that helped solidify it for them. So Khan Academy is a great resource if you're teaching math at any level. I don't care if you're in preschool or college, it's a great place to go. Good one to have. Same thing here, Math Playground, it's just a lot of reinforcement. It's a good place to be. There is one on your sheet that I no longer have on here, and that is Mr. Meyer's Math Mania. It's another good one for building fluency, and it's a great one for practice. I do not have it on here simply because last night I went to check all my hyperlinks to make sure that everything was working, and it repeatedly made my PowerPoint freeze, so I got rid of it. But it is a good one in there, so it's worth having. Same thing here, covers a multitude of sins. This one is actually a tutorial. It will teach the kids the different processes, so it's a good review for them. I told you in science, this one is an absolute positive must. And it is one that I'm going to have you, if people have laptops and you want to play with it, this is one that's really worth going to. I'm going to come back and revisit here in a little bit on this one and send you here to have you play with it. All districts should have discovery education. If they don't, that's another one in your interview. Ask them, do you have discovery education? And if they say, no, we don't, we say, why not? Because it's incredible. We use this as a way of teaching science. The streaming is any subject you could possibly want. You can get access videos through here. This Discovery Science is amazing. It's interactive. It's got everything you could possibly want. My kids are addicted to it. And we have just this year added the assessment piece where we actually use this as a standardized assessment 3 times a year for progress monitoring. And it gives us by far the finest reports I've ever seen. The nice thing about Discovery is you can set up something called My Discovery. You can set up learning groups. You can find different video clips and activities and prompt questions and you name it that you can put into a folder and then assign it to a particular group of kids who might need reinforcement on a particular thing. Send the kids to Discovery, create the assignment, and say, I want you to log in, go to this assignment, and everything is there. And they can do it independently. This right here is one of the things I wanted to show you. This is incredible. Come on. Where do you want to go? Let's find something. Well, okay, my kids were doing forces in motion. This is a lot of fun. They've been working on forces in motion. In fact, we just finished it. Let's see if I can get to that. We're going to go to forces in motion, and let's see, we'll talk about, we've got an introduction. Well, here, we started out with something like this, and this is where I say you can't beat it. We wanted to learn about forces in motion, and one of the things we wanted to start with was an introduction. And here we have this great little something or other that we started with. It does have, this particular one does have a lab sheet that goes with it. You get a teacher's guide. This one had a quiz that went with it. But now what we have is this wonderful little interactive something or other that the kids actually get in here and do this. And then we talk about it. We talk about what they noticed, and it's a great introduction. Was this the one on, is this an interactive one? Well, here we have an interactive little movie. So it brings the little video clips up so they can do that. No, 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 stop. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Okay, here, we'll try this. We want to get rid of that.
This is more than a casual
Stop, 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 stop.
It is a lesson in physics, a demonstration of how things move and why.
Okay, there. All right. Let's get you back. So anyway, you could take the kids through all different video clips and all kinds of activities. You have an opportunity to learn about different things, and you have all these different video clips and what have you, and e-books and all sorts of great things. But then the fun thing is they get to go into and explore. And they're going to do some kind of a virtual lab. Let's see, this one, you have a student guide, and you might get something like this for a teacher, for a student guide, that they're actually going to have to come up with a lab and look at some questions in their exploration. And then they're going to actually go through the exploration, and then they're going to look at all this wonderful stuff. They're gathering data, and then they're going to analyze the data. So this is great for any level from about 3rd grade on up. It's a fantastic thing. But what they do with that is, okay, we're done with details. Then they go in, and they're actually going to do the lab. So they're going to get, a nice thing is kids who are not real good readers can listen to it.
Try.
Go ahead.
Try throwing a ball up in the air.
It's not the greatest voice,
No
but
matter
it
how
works
high
like a charm.
goes, it always falls back on Earth. Why does this happen? ERTHAS, gravity pulls the ball back towards it.
That's a computer for you.
Explore gravity.
All right, so then click on the elements and see how gravity affects them. It's going to explain to it, and it's going to give us a little bit of that. And we'll have all kinds of little things they're going to do. And then they may go in here and, well, let's see on Venus. Let's take a bowling ball. It'll tell you all the different weights. So you've got all kinds of fun things that are interactive things to do. And on some of them, you know, they have to, they had simple machines things. They had to devise simple machines to do certain things. And very, very interactive. The kids spend hours on it and love every minute of it. But you have all these wonderful video clips. And instead of showing the whole video, you're just showing the clip that really deals with what it is you want to talk about. So, also here, and this is so cool, because you have vocabulary. Well, vocabulary isn't always a blast to learn, but it is when you get into an interactive vocabulary. We're talking about mass here, and so it's going to tell you all about mass. And we've got a nice little animation going, and if you want something more, they're going to give you a video clip that's going to tell you about mass. So we're dealing with all the different learning styles here. We've got the visual, we've got the auditory.
An elephant, for example, has more mass than a bee. And even though this brick and this box are the same size, the brick has more mass.
And if you don't want that, well, we're going to get an image, and they're going to be able to explain to you a little bit more about that. So when you get to vocabulary, you can have the kids click on this and get a little more information. It explains it all in a way that the kids are, it's very kid-friendly. They love going through and doing that. And we do a lot of vocabulary activities with things like that. So discovery education is one of those that, you know, I don't know how any district lives without it. Most of them in the Kent County area do have United Streaming, which will give you, you're looking for videos on anything. You're looking for resources, you're looking for lessons, you're looking for pictures. All you have to do is get on Discovery Education. You're going to find it. It's one of the best tools out there. National Geographic Kids, that's another one that's great fun. It's got a little of everything. It's National Geographic, what can you say? It's a great place to find informational articles when you want to work on informational reading and you're looking for something new and different. Or if you want to teach kids research, it's a great resource for doing things like that. Science Kids, this is the one if you're looking for science fair projects. My kids are going to be doing science fair projects coming up in a month, so we're sending them off to Science Kids right now. It's a marvelous resource for all sorts of things, but particularly if you're looking for hands-on learning or a way to demonstrate a concept. They probably have come up with a way, and all you have to do is go in and find it, and they'll show you how to do it. This is a little of the everything part. Things that you never want to forget. Google Earth. How many people here have spent a lot of time on Google Earth? One of the things you want to do, virtual field trips. Let me give you an example of the kinds of things that we've done with that. We were reading a book this year called The 1,000-Mile Journey, and it is about a woman. We teach Michigan history. It's really Michigan studies. It talks about the government. It talks about the, you know, a little of everything. And we started out the year reading this book to the kids as a read aloud, and she starts in Wisconsin, and she walks all the way around the shoreline of Lake Michigan. And she chronicles her journey the whole way. The nice thing was that we were able to get on Google Earth, and as she would tell us about her journey and where she was walking that day, we would actually get on Google Earth, we would type in the places that she was, and we would be able to zoom right down so the kids could actually see the place where she was at that time. Our students followed her journey all the way around the shoreline of Lake Michigan. In the process, they learned a great deal about Michigan. They learned a great deal about its history. They learned a great deal about its geography. We looked at landforms. When she talked about certain, Sleeping Bear Dunes, we typed in Sleeping Bear Dunes and we zoomed right down and took a look at Sleeping Bear Dunes. It also would, puts in longitude and latitude. The kids were able to learn about that. They learned a lot about map skills just with Google Earth. And we covered so many different standards just with something like that. When we study space, of course, we want to take a little trip to Mars. You can get on Google Earth and go to Google Mars, and it's just like you're flying right over the Mars surface. They also have it now for the moon. So we fly right over the surface of the moon, and we pinpoint on different places, and you can actually get right down on there and do a 360 look around. So it's kind of like visiting the planet. You visit different countries, different cities, no matter what it is you're teaching. You put it in on Google Earth. You can visit these places. The kids can actually see the buildings. They can see the Eiffel Tower. They can see the Sydney Opera House. They can get right down there, and it brings it to life for them. And at the same time, they're really getting a much clearer concept of how that fits into the world as a whole. When we talk about current events and things that are going on in current events, we get out Google Earth and we take a little trip so that the kids can see where that is and where it is in relation to where they are. It brings that world a little bit closer to them. This is another one that every school, this is not a subscription one. It's out there. Pete's PowerPoint Stations. People spend an awful lot of time making PowerPoints. That's a lot of time wasted because somebody else has probably already done it for you. No matter what it is, no matter what the PowerPoint is that you want, Pete's probably got it. These are ones that people have actually loaded up. Free interactive activities, free PowerPoints. I take them all the time. Yeah, what would you like to learn about? Let's go to science. Let's see. Oh, let's go to math. We'll look at fractions. That's what we're in right now anyway. Let's take a look here. Okay. We have a list here. Free PowerPoint presentations and activities for kids. I'm going to go down here. I have to find one on drawing conclusions too. Let's see. What would we like to have? Fractions. We want to know about the difference between the numerator and denominator. Kids have a hard time with that for some reason. Oh, fantastic fractions. Let's take a look here. And what happens is we actually have a PowerPoint come up. And all you do is you download it and you've got it. Now this one, let me see if it's going to come up or not. No, we're not going to bring it up right now. Okay. Let's try another one. I don't know if it'll come up in my PowerPoint or not right now because I'm running PowerPoint. All right. Once in a while you run into this. PPPST. But anyway, it's nothing but a collection of PowerPoints on any subject you could possibly imagine. And it probably has half a dozen different ones that you can go to. So you don't have to spend your time making PowerPoints unless it's something you're just dying to do. But with all the other things you have to do, you really don't have time for that. So you go in here and you pull off your PowerPoint for whatever it is you want to do. And it will also take you to interactive activities for the kids. So it makes life a lot easier. Like I said, tomorrow I'm going to be finding one on drawing conclusions, and I'll probably just go to Pete's PowerPoints and dig one up that'll work for the kids. This is one, Kia Web. Has anybody here ever heard of Kia Web? This is a great place to cut down on your paperwork. And you can create quizzes, you can create activities. The kids go in, they actually take the quiz or the activity right there on Kia Web, and it corrects it for you. It grades it for you and keeps it in your grade book, which is really nice. Now, when I use Kia Web, I usually will have some short answers or essay kinds of things. You have to go in and correct those, but it takes you a whole lot less time to do something like that. And again, there are activities for all sorts of different things. So I've created all these different groups here. Let me see, what do I got for reading in there right now? Nothing. Took a little stuff, took some of that stuff out of there. Let's see, social studies, I know we've got some activities. And we actually, so now I made up a quiz here. It was all there. The kids could put in their name, and they all logged in, and they actually took the test online. I had a couple of kids who were absent. They could log in from home and do it. I didn't have to worry about it. They did it, and all I had to do was go in and grade, but you just assign it, and there they are. So we had, nope, not going to get me in there. I don't want to go in right now. But anyway, that's how I do most of my quizzes now. I just put it in on Kia. I don't have to worry about having all these papers to lug around. Everything's there. And I can set it up so that kids can go back in and take the test several times. And parents can be given a username and password that's specific to their child. So parents can actually get online anytime they want and see how their child is doing. They can go to their child's grade book and look at their grades anytime they want. So it's a wonderful tool for parents to stay on top of things. And things that might have taken me an hour and a half to correct before, I can correct in about 10 minutes and have the grades there for the kids. They get instant feedback. You can also set these quizzes up so that the kids get feedback immediately. They know whether or not their answer is right or wrong. That's very helpful to them too. This is a great place to allow kids to do a lot of practice, set up activities for them, or just to do a quick quiz. This is my other favorite, Edmodo. And Edmodo is actually where I set up a lot of my assignments so that when especially if I have a sub, in fact, when I left this afternoon, I had some questions on Edmodo, and I just told my sub, I said, you know what, send the kids, tell them to go to Edmodo and go to, and they didn't have, there was no explanation. The kids knew exactly what they needed to do, and I could have everything in one place, no paper involved. It's another one of those things that's a wonderful teacher tool. The kids all have their own account. They can communicate with me. They can put posts in. Let's see, Mrs. Krueger's third grade. What were some of the things we were doing? Okay, this was one they were doing today, as a matter of fact. We were working on drawing conclusions. I had, instead of using this as a worksheet, I actually put the text in. The kids were reading this. When they were done, they had to go back and they actually had to answer the questions, but it was, you know, I'm not running up copy costs. All of the stuff was here. The kids have a reading journal. The questions were here. They could go back in and they could read the questions and do that. And then they email me when it's done so I know that they finished it. The other thing, we were looking at science the other day, and when they finished their science tests, they were able to go to the Museum of Science and Industry and help Twitch create an actual compound machine. So I just said, go to Edmodo, it's in there, and everything that they need is all in one place. We were talking about idioms. I was able to just put in a PowerPoint presentation, an interactive presentation. They were able to go through and do the activity. I didn't have to do anything except put a link in. It was already there, and just say, go to Edmodo, the link's there, and the kids could do idioms. So they had a great time with that the other day. We were talking about pulleys. I put in some, this one was a little bit of a problem, but there were actually videos they had to go to, but it didn't come up quite right. But I had in the videos that they had to watch, and then in their science journal, I had the question right there. I didn't have to do anything on paper. It was all there. We keep a composition book. They do all their writing in a composition book. I'm not carrying papers around. So Edmodo is, and you can share this with classrooms. So that's one of the things. This one they had a great time with. We sent them to Ed Heads, and they were able to go in and have a grand old time with this. So they had to go in and they had to find the simple machines in the...
Hey there, come on in. This is my bathroom. Oh, don't worry, I just cleaned. Why don't you have a look around and try to find and identify all 10 simple machines?
That was a great place for the kids to go. They absolutely loved it. Again, there was very little work on my part. I just needed to know where it was. This was a great review after they had gone through all of the different simple machines, a lot of which had been done on Edmodo and some hands-on kinds of things. And then the kids were able to go through and review it, and I was able to see whether or not they were getting it, simply by having a lot of fun with that. No, don't need to do that. So Edmodo is another one of my little goodies that we want to do. All right. I guess for me, the underlying, or I should say the overarching thing here is that right there. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already there. It's out there online. You've got a beginning kind of a collection of websites that you might want to take some time to really look at and kind of play with it. But you want to be out there really looking for this, and probably one of the most important tools you can have as a teacher is to have a really large collection of online kinds of activities, because you're going to have enough to do. You don't need to be constantly trying to create these kinds of activities. Somebody's already done it, and teachers love to share. I mean, let's face it, they're very proud of their work, and they're posting this stuff online all the time. You need to go in, you find it. Most of the work has already been done for you, as long as you know where to look, and you've got your base collection of places that you can go to. That's your little bag of tricks to keep the kids really, really motivated. I'm here to field questions. If you, do we have time that they can kind of explore a little bit if they want to? Or are we running a little bit late?
Yeah, we're running a little late.
We're running a little late here. Okay.
I'm sure with the handout that
Yeah. Yeah, that handout, I'm hoping that the sites' names are, that you can see them clearly. They were a little bit smaller than, if there are any of them that you want that aren't too sure, we can get it back up on the screen for you real quickly. So if you've got anything that you want to get back to and say, I'm not too sure if I've got that website right or not, we can get it back on the URL for you. Do you have questions?